If you're running a marketing agency and you're already getting a consistent amount of inbound sales calls in your calendar every week, and you're thinking about hiring a sales rep, you're probably telling yourself, I just need to get somebody else to take these calls. And on the surface, it feels like the obvious next step, but the problem is that hiring isn't a single action, it is a sequence. And if you get that sequence wrong, you'll burn through your time, your energy, and probably about 10 or 20 potential clients in the process. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through the exact step-by-step process that I would follow to hire a sales rep as a marketing agency owner, so sales can actually move away from you without you getting dragged back in later. And if you're wondering why you should listen to me, I've been in the online high-ticket sales space for 2 years now, collected about $1.5 million in cash, and now I help agency owners get off sales calls by building their sales system and then hiring a trained closer to run it. So let's dive in. Step one is documenting your sales process. Right now, it's highly likely that all the calls that you run are run based on instinct and pattern recognition, which makes sense because you've never needed anything else. You've never needed the process to be documented before. The issue is that everything that a rep would need, all the context they would need about what you sell, who you sell it to, how you sell it, exists in your head. And that's going to be a problem, right? Because you can't expect to just magically transfer that knowledge to them one time. They may even be a good closer, but if they don't know what you sell, who you sell it to, and how you sell it, and what common objections come up and all that stuff, then they're going to have a very difficult time succeeding. So what you need to do is create a few different assets. First and foremost, you need to create a lead qualification guide so they know who to spend time on, right? What makes a qualified lead? You need to write scripts for the sales call itself, how you do the discovery, what questions you ask, why you ask them, a bit of rationale behind that. How you pitch, maybe a pitch deck with some assets on it, some visual stuff about the process and structure specifically. You need to create objection handling guides for the most common pushbacks and objections that you get. If people are always giving you the money objection or always the partner objection, always fear objections, maybe all three, you need to be able to successfully transfer how you best handle those objections to the person that you hire. Again, you may have a great process. You may be able to do this very successfully, but you can't expect the person you hire to do it successfully too, because they might not have the context that you do. In fact, they definitely don't, right? You need to compile case studies, sales assets, documented instances where you've succeeded for a particular client in your niche, right? That closer can bring out on a sales call. You might have them all memorized. You might remember every one of your clients and the great results that you've delivered for them, but your closer doesn't. And they really need to familiarize themselves with those so they can just bring them out confidently on a sales call and just crush any objections that the prospect may have, right? And then close the deal, which means cash collected and hopefully a happy customer as well. You're going to need to document your price, like the price of your service, the different types of pricing, how you can split it up, the different services you offer. The last marketing agency that I worked in, we offered like 5 different services and probably about 12 different prices altogether. There was a lot of different options, a lot of different ways in, based on various things like their revenue level. It was we worked in the e-commerce niche. What revenue level were they? What service did they need? What combination of services did they need? If they did a combination, what was the discount they would provide on that? There's just all these different things that are abstract until they are written down and documented. And yeah, like I said, not only do you need to document the pricing, but also list the payment options, have links to all the payment, the means of payment. You don't want it to be the case that your closer's on a call just about to close a deal and then scrambling to find a payment link or trying to whip something up really quickly inside, Stripe or whatever payment processor you use. And then it just ends up being messy. Step 2 is defining role responsibilities. Right now, it's likely that you haven't mapped out what the closer would handle versus what you handle. If you're currently the only person in the sales seat, you're currently handling everything. You may not be doing everything that needs to be done, but you are at least responsible for doing it. But it's very likely that you don't have like a clear process for, what to do pre-call. How do we contact people beforehand? Do we message them on WhatsApp? Do we, give them a call? Do we make sure they've confirmed the appointment? You might not have like a post-call follow-up process. How many times are we following up with people who don't close but who didn't say no, who we want to nurture, who we want to keep warm? How are we reaching back out to people in our database who've been cold for a month or 3 months or 6 months or 12 months? What kind of processes are we going there? And are they even is that even a responsibility? Like, are we just going to let those leads sit there? Because right now, what's worth mentioning is that it's likely that you don't have time to go and do all those things, because if you're a full-time sales rep, and maybe you're the full-time marketer in the business, and you're also managing the delivery team, you're not sitting there just going through sheets and sheets of old leads and just calling them all, trying to book appointments, right? It's unlikely because you're probably just too busy, or maybe you don't know you need to do that. Either way, that's just money just sitting there waiting to be extracted, right? If you're spending money on marketing, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, and you've got a database full of old leads that aren't being contacted, you could just be getting leads for money that you've already spent, right? You could be lowering your lifetime CAC just by rinsing your database. Anyway, don't want to rant too hard here, but you get the idea, right? You need to map every task that they're responsible for with clear processes for what they do, when they do it, how they do it. Email and SMS templates for pre-call communication to improve show rates, templates, same again for post-call communication as well. Templates for post-call communication, documenting when and how to call the old leads, like I already said. Training them on CRM usage and what metrics they're working towards. Are you using Go High Level? Are you using Close? Are you using HubSpot? How do you use it? How do you track things? What are the pipelines? What does an opportunity status mean? What does a lead status mean? How do we use the custom fields? What are the custom fields for? There's so many different things, right? Plus, you need to define what the KPIs are, what you're going to pay them, what the bonus structure is, if applicable, what their OTE will be, what their progression path will be. One of the things that's super important is that if you want to hire a good closer, you're going to need to pay them very, very well, right? A lot of closers, myself included, when I was doing high ticket sales full time, wouldn't get out of bed for anything less than $10K a month, dollars. Not even close. And by the time I got to the end of my high ticket sales career, I really wouldn't consider a role that paid anything less than 20 to 25,000 USD per month. It just wouldn't flag to me on my radar because it's what's the point? There are other people who will pay that. There's some roles that pay 30, 40, 50 plus K per month. So, if you want to hire the best people, you're going to want to make sure that you've got a great compensation structure in place. That being said, doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't necessarily need the best person either. And also, getting all of this stuff in place will mean you don't even need the best person, because a good person will do a great job if you have everything documented like this, whereas a great person might not do that good of a job, or as good a job as they're capable of, if none of this is in place already, right? They might just be spinning their wheels and then get impatient and then leave, right? And these things happen. But yeah, and also you need to clarify, any extracurricular opportunities. Is there a budget available to them for training, for mentorship? I invested in my own sales mentorship when I was a high ticket closer out of my own money, but then that was reimbursed to me eventually by the guy that I was working with. I told him that I'd spent that money and it had made a massive difference to the close rate, tripled it. And he was happy to kind of pay for it retrospectively after I'd actually paid for it myself, applied it, got the results. So yeah, those are all very, very important things. Step 3 is hiring the right person. You'll already have a really good idea about what you're looking for once you've clearly defined what the role responsibilities are, like you did in step 2. So if you know exactly what they need to do and what their expectations is and what they're going to get paid and everything like that, then it's really easy to mirror that into the candidate that you're looking for. If you're looking for somebody who's got great experience just calling loads of leads in a database, then the person you hire, you're probably going to want them to be good at that. Or if it's B2B, if you're I'm selling to B2B prospects and I want them to be able to do that, then you want someone who's done that in a B2B setting. You get the idea. The thing is that most candidates will look good until you realize that they don't match your sales model. Multiple times I've hired and trained closers and then they've not been that good of a fit, even though on paper they were really good closers and they had great track records, because they just weren't a fit for that type of sales or that type of model or something like that. Taking someone from a B2C coaching offer into a B2B agency offer, it's a very, very different way of selling. And the same in reverse. I fear that I may even be a little bit rusty on the B2C sales now because I've done so much B2B and I'm so used to that logical kind of mathematical kind of sales process as opposed to leveraging emotion and getting down to the deep and dirty into people's childhoods, right, in the sales. So yeah, you're going to want to filter by relevant experience, B2B versus B2C, high ticket versus low ticket, online versus in person. You want to assess their cultural fit as well based on what you value in how people work. If you're going to have a clear idea of what kind of person you're looking for, right? And you should be looking for that type of person in the sales rep as well. At the end of the day, you need someone who's a cultural fit and you need someone who's good at the job. And that is that is going to be really important. Even people who are good, if they're not a cultural fit, you're going to want to get rid of them. I've spoken to some very good closers in interview processes and thought, this person sucks. There's actually one person who stands out in particular. Like they had just a terrible, terrible attitude. Anyway, and then you're going to need to confirm role, responsibilities, and compensation and progression with the closer themselves. And you need to make sure that you're treating your top candidates like leads, right? You need to be nurturing them and you need to close them on the role. If you interview 3 people and they're all killers, you don't just leave them in the dark. You want to be messaging them every day. Just interviewed the other guy, like not long until I finished the interview process. Now really looking forward to giving you a final answer. These people are going to be in high demand. If they're actually good, they're going to have other opportunities on their plate. And you're going to want to make sure that you're the one who closes the deal in terms of actually getting them on the team. And then also people who are unsuccessful in that you may hire, the best one of the 3 people, but the other 2 people you happily would have hired as well. You want to nurture them. You want to treat them well, because when you go to hire another rep, or if this one doesn't work out, you want them to be ready. You want to be able to reach out and be like, hey, like I said, this was really close, really hard decision. I'd love to hire you now. And that person, even if they're busy, will respect that. Maybe they will refer you somebody. So many people interview and then ghost and piss people off, and it just burns your relationship when it comes to recruitment, which is very important. Step 4, now we've done the previous 3 steps, is to onboard them correctly. The reason why a lot of new hires struggle is because they don't know what a good call sounds like. They don't know what a good process looks like. They're expected to perform without much context or coaching, and that can work if you hire someone really, really good. But for most people who are just average, right? Just statistically, on average, you're going to get someone average. They're not going to be able to succeed. They're not going to do that good of a job straight out the gate. It's going to take them some time to ramp up, and you can help them accelerate that time horizon and become better, faster by documenting a clear onboarding process that they can follow over the first 1, 2, 4 weeks, something like that. You need to make it make a systemized process of giving them access to all the systems and introducing them to the team and having them learn about the offer and the business in depth. Maybe you need to record some assets and, some looms and just document it all. Make it clear that what it is that they're going to be doing, what they're going to be selling, who they're going to be selling it to, who does what on the team, which are the best clients, which are the, tricky clients, whatever. They need to listen to 15 to 25 sales calls that closed, so they get into that groove of, right, that's what a close sounds like. That's the kind of thing that I need to be saying. A lot of good closers are great at pattern recognition, and then they're able to use those patterns in their own sales calls. I remember there's been times where I don't really understand what I'm selling, but I just know exactly how the person who the founder was selling it before was selling it, and then I just say those things, and it's like, oh yeah, it worked, and it just to put it out there, it was also relevant to the prospect. I had that much understanding, that I knew that it would be relevant. I just didn't have a deep understanding of it. And then, you need to put them on calendar at about 50% capacity, and they need to take about 10 to 20 calls for you to have a sufficient amount of data. And then you need to be coaching them daily with feedback and role playing with them to maximize their chance of success, and also identify bad hires early. The right people will be clear quickly. The wrong people should be wrong people should be pretty clear quickly, just based on attitude and coachability and just various things. You'll just know instinctively. But the problem is the people in the middle can be a little bit hard to guess whether or not, is this person actually going to be good or are they going to be bad? And you don't want to hold on to them too tightly for too long. You need to make sure that you've got a small amount of data that's sufficient for you to be able to assess their ability on, and then give it time to collect that data. If you find that they're just being a dick after, within 10 calls, then fire them. If, you're not too sure and you're at 10 calls and they're not doing great, you never know. Regression to the mean. If you're looking for a 20% close rate, right, and they take 10 calls and close nothing, you're like, oh, this person sucks. But then if they take 5 more calls and close 3, or one of the ones that they already took closed, and then they close 2 more, bang, they're at 20% close rate. All of a sudden, things are going well. So give it time and make sure that you're coaching them. And then step 5 is to review that initial performance, right? If you don't have, you might not have, clear standards for what success looks like early on right now. And you might not have aligned expectations with them either on what that good performance means if you do hire someone without following this process. We want to make sure that both of those problems are avoided completely. We want to define success upfront with them. And that is that they should hit 50% of their target KPI within the initial period. So if they need to be at 30% close rate or collecting a certain amount of cash per week, or however you choose to measure it, they need to do perform at least 50% of that. So if they need to close 20% of their calls, they take 20 calls. If they don't close 10% of them, so 2 of them, then they've got to go. Sometimes you got to let them go anyway. If if you're already on the fence and then they're at 50% of KPI, 20 calls is a lot of calls. I remember on the last offer I was on as a high ticket closer, I had no idea about the business on the weekend before. And then I got given the interview on the Monday. I got hired on Monday evening and I got onboarded and actually took calls on the Tuesday. And I closed 2 deals on the Thursday. And it was like straight out of the gate, bang, deals closed within, 10 calls. And the KPI, I can't remember what the KPI was, maybe like 30% or something like that. But it was instant. The result, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And it was clear to the founder, this guy's going to close deals. It should be clear to you too. So yeah, I would set a clear initial period, 2 weeks or 20 calls, whatever comes sooner, unless they're just being a real pain. And then it should be very clear, like I said, if there's someone who's great, and not always clear if someone's mediocre. So by having those standards defined up front, you're going to avoid any confusion. And then, you want to review performance together at the end of the period and decide next steps. It should be very clear what you want to do from here. If someone hits the KPI, if you're happy with their performance, then keep them on. You can let go of anyone anytime, right? It's your business. And if they're not doing very well, then you need to, let them go gracefully and hire again. It's that simple. A mistake I've made twice, is holding on to the wrong person for too long. The winners always win, but not all losers start winning. And I'm not saying the people that are hired who are held on to for too long were losers. Actually, I think they were quite good, but I don't think they were the right fit for the offer that I was on. And as a result of that, they soaked up call volume that they shouldn't have soaked up, deals that I otherwise could have closed, revenue that we otherwise could have collected for the business, and that was a mistake. So don't get too emotional, don't get too, pally with your team too quickly, because you may let emotion influence your decision here when you need to be logical. And that is I'm saying this from experience, because I am an emotional pally person who builds rapport and gets friendly with people and then feels bad for letting them go, even if they're bad. The conclusion to all this is that founders waste time, money, and energy when either they fail at hiring a salesperson or it never happens. And that usually results in either cycling through reps or staying on sales yourself, or both. And if you build these steps first, it's going to allow you to onboard and hire a full-time rep successfully, I don't know why that was a tongue twister, to run sales on a day-to-day basis. And that's going to free you to focus on the parts of the business that only you can do, which is crucial, right? You aren't the only person who can close, but you are the only person who can do other parts of your business. You need to get somebody else closing who's dedicated to it full-time, who can just smash it, and then you can focus on other areas of the business. And if you want help with this, any of this, if you want help building the system, documenting the process, hiring the sales rep, training them, onboarding them, everything and anything you can think of when it comes to bringing a sales rep into your agency and then being successful and you no longer having to take the sales calls, then you can book a call with me. Click the link in the description and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you and we'll take it from there.